Grace didn't pay any mind to the babysitter's flirtatious nature at first, but when she saw her and her husband whispering, 1,000 thoughts raced through her mind. But when she opened the footage up, she couldn't believe what she saw. Before we start, make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on the notification bell so you never miss out on our latest uploads. The married Richards was always the talk of the town. From the outside, it seemed like they had it all. The husband, John, was a successful lawyer while his wife, Grace, worked in real estate. But when the couple found out that they were pregnant, they felt like their dreams had come true. But Grace was unaware of the complications they would face. Grace had always dreamed of being a mother, so when she found out she was pregnant, she felt that her life was finally complete. And in the end, she carried her child without a hitch. But the problems would start after she gave birth. She would suffer from postpartum depression and struggle to get back to her old physique. She had to get a babysitter while she went back to work. Someone had to take care of her precious baby. She hired Anna, a pretty young woman who came recommended. Grace thought it would be the best decision, but she was so wrong. Anna was the flirtatious type, so Grace didn't pay any attention when she was friendly with her husband. But when he saw her husband and Anna whispering in the hallway one day, her stomach flipped. What was he up to? Grace was becoming all too aware as time wore on that their relationship had changed. They had been together for a while. Grace began to wonder whether her husband thought it was time for a change. After all, she had given birth to a child, and she didn't have the energy or the physique that she once had. Usually, she would just brush these suspicions off. But now she had a good reason for suspicion. Grace wasn't quite sure how to deal with the situation she was in. She didn't want to blatantly ask him. That would betray his trust. She decided that she would need hard evidence before doing anything. Who knows, maybe she was just jealous for nothing. She had a plan. She set up 2 hidden cameras inside the house and 1 outside. She continued to act as if she suspected nothing. But the more time passed, the more she noticed their strange behaviors. Her heart pounded as she realized there was definitely something going on between them. After a week passed, Grace was ready to confront her worst nightmare. She sat in her living room and logged into the security cameras. She hoped desperately that her intuition was wrong. She scoured over the footage, pausing any time she saw both her husband and Anna alone in a room. She'd continue to hit play and watch anxiously as her stomach twisted. It wasn't long before she noticed the tension between them. Anna slowly closed the distance between them each time they were alone. Now, there was no doubt she was hitting on him, but how would he react? Grace was glued to the screen. Suddenly, she heard a knock on the door. It was Anna. She dropped by unannounced to collect her payment for the month. She said that John was expecting her. Grace forced a smile. Just then, her husband appeared. "Anna," he said. Grace was about to get up and reach for her wallet when John said, "Oh, I got this, Grace. You don't worry about it." He insisted on walking Anna out to her car and paying her himself. Little did he know, Grace was watching. More often than not, being a mom isn't the sexiest of jobs. You are tired, full of mess, and constantly available for your kids. However, Grace's husband was a desirable man. She had often noticed the looks he got from other women. She tried not to let it bother her, but it lingered in the back of her mind. But the way their babysitter was looking at him tonight put her on high alert. Grace could see that Anna was behaving more oddly than usual around her husband tonight, and she was wearing a slinky little black number that left little to the imagination. Maybe she was going out partying afterwards. Grace tried to give her the benefit of the doubt, but when she saw her put her hand on John's arm, she knew she was definitely up to something. Grace watched Anna and her husband walk to the hallway, then they stopped. She wished she could hear what Anna was saying. Then her heart dropped. The audacious babysitter took a few steps back and gestured at her little black dress suggestively. It didn't take much for Grace to imagine what she was saying. She couldn't see her husband's reaction, though. He had his back to the camera. Then they stepped outside. Grace watched as her husband guided Anna outside. Then she logged straight into the live footage from the outdoor camera. This is it, she thought. The moment her marriage came crumbling apart, she watched them converse. But something was wrong. It looked like an argument. Anna started to cry and John stormed back inside. What happened? Grace raced out to her husband. What happened? She asked. I fired her, John said. Why? Grace questioned. John told her to take a seat. Grace braced herself for what was to come. It was happening. She couldn't believe it. John told her that he didn't like the way she treated him. He continued. I didn't like the way she looked or talked to me. She flirted with me all the time and I felt like she was completely disrespecting you. She made me feel uncomfortable. I told her to stop many times. She didn't listen. I was left with no choice. It was way too inappropriate. Grace had never felt happier and guilty, so she came clean. Grace told him how worried she was. She said she knew something was going on between them and set up a camera. She asked for his forgiveness for spying and should have trusted him. She explained that she felt insecure since the baby and felt like he wasn't as interested in her anyway. Grace began to cry. She told John how she felt like everyone she knew had been able to pull themselves together after giving birth, but she was struggling with her insecurities and her postpartum depression. She hadn't managed to lose the baby weight, and she felt like he didn't find her attractive anymore, which only made things worse. Her husband was shocked at her response. He had no idea she felt that way, and although he didn't appreciate her not trusting him and going to such extremes, he admitted that he should have just been open about everything with her. He understood how it must have looked as he didn't communicate openly and maturely with her. And needless to say, Anna wasn't hired by the Richards ever again. What Grace had done pushed her to finally get professional help for her postpartum depression. Her doctor explained that she wasn't alone in her feelings. Postpartum depression affects 10 to 20% of new mothers. She started treatment with antidepressant medication and began seeing a psychotherapist. John was supportive and completely on her side. She no longer felt so alone. Around 4 weeks later, the terrible looming paranoia and insecurity began to lift. Grace felt like she was able to breathe. The feelings of inadequacy, depression, and anxiety melted away and she started to become her old self again. They hired a new babysitter to help her with her baby a few days after John fired Anna, and she was nothing like her. After a year of treatment, Grace was ready to come off the medication. Her one regret is not getting the help she needed earlier. There was joy in her life again, and with John's support, she grew to accept her post-baby body. After all, John didn't care one bit that she wasn't as slim as she used to be, and she finally accepted that too. Although some people may trivialize postpartum depression, it is very real and requires medical care. It is not something a new mother can overcome by herself simply by snapping out of it or by trying to be more positive. This extreme form of depression can make women feel like they have lost control, that they are helpless, and that they are inadequate. So, what should you do if you know someone you think is experiencing it? According to the Postnatal Depression Support Association, the most effective way to tackle postpartum depression, in conjunction with medication, is to seek professional care from a psychologist to identify the triggers and help the new mom work through them. There are also support groups out there, and many women find it helpful to share their thoughts and feelings with other women. Most of all, women with postpartum depression need to know that they are not alone.